All right, happy Monday. It's a memory team meeting and then jump right into it. So we have 4 days left in the timeline. So near the end, after we're done walking through these, we'll go through what's unassigned and talk about anything that needs to be carried over to the next milestone. So jumping right in, telemetry, Chin, you did a nice summary here. Is there anything you wanted to add, Matthias? I know you're back from a week off and catching up, but is there anything you wanted to add to what Chin you wrote out for the telemetry topic?
Not much. I actually just I totally forgot about the dashboard. I'm looking at it now. So definitely surprising that there's responses where the node size is bigger than 1. That can only be a bug because we do not support multi-node. So that's curious. So yeah, I'll have to look at that more. Then the OpenMR where it says in maintainer review, I just spotted a small issue, not a big deal, but I'm fixing that right now. It's actually already assigned to the maintainer, but it's a small change. I'm going to push it in a minute. And the one underneath that external Prometheus address issue that just got merged like an hour ago or so. Yeah, so I think this is like all we wanted to get. This is actually already more than what we wanted to get done for 13.2. So I feel pretty good about it overall.
Okay.
So we the one on the Nginx support for the request rate and stuff like
that? Say it again.
You
mean measuring the request volume?
Yes.
That's done, but we didn't use Nginx. We measured it through Workhorse.
Okay.
So that got merged before I left. So I don't know if we have numbers already on that dashboard. That's something I need to look at still. Just so it's like basically we need to verify that it works, but it should be done.
Awesome. Thank you.
I was going to ask, what is this dashboard telling us? What kind of data are we getting back?
Yeah, this is like kind of a bit of a stopgap solution until we have the proper ETLs in place and an actual dashboard, which we still need stories for as well. So we need to work with data team for this.
Yeah.
But we wanted to first get a sense of, do we even get data and what does it look like? So these are just the JSON dumps of the payloads that we collect from Omnibus installations as they are posted to the version app. That's all.
Cool. I'll get those open today since we know
cool.
it's working.
You. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
And is this telling us that we're getting almost 4,000 unique instances back, or is that just the total of pings we're getting back?
So we don't support multi-node yet. So none of this is expected to work if customers run more than 1 node. So I would expect that the vast majority is in this 1 node bucket. But I'm even surprised that there are still a bunch that are not. Like there's one that has, if I'm reading this right, it says it's a 7-node system. That's very strange. I mean, so it could be because so this data is really late, right? So a lot of this might be a couple of weeks old. So we know there were a couple of issues, and one of them is exactly this issue right underneath there, the improved node mapping thing, where if you do stuff like you bind one of the GitLab services to like a broadcast address, something like a listen on all the network interfaces, we might end up mapping this to a separate node. So this is kind of a bug or like a shortcoming we were aware of, but it wasn't targeted for the MVC. So we did it as part of 13.2. So yeah, so I need to look at the data still actually, but I suspect it might be these things where stuff is actually running on the same node, but we don't recognize them as much because maybe they like use a different way of identifying localhost, because you could use an IP address and it could be an IPv6 versus IPv4 address. So that's all that being addressed in this merge request down there.
I'm sorry, I missed Josh. What were you going to follow up with?
The data team dashboards issues and ETLs.
Okay, thank you. Nicola's here. Added a very large headline in there.
Yeah, make it red.
All right, so you have a few items you've been working on. So improving performance of blob controller.
Yeah, this is almost done. I just need to fix some specs, like to make them more readable, and I expect that maintainer will merge today or maybe tomorrow. But it's almost done, it's tested, and just need to be some small changes about specs, and it's ready to go.
Okay. So what's the summary here? So you're improving the performance of the bonsai filter. Is that going to push us to S3 on the overall blob controller? Is that the next step? Maybe Grant can answer that one.
Not really sure, but what do you mean by that?
So, sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to just quickly check the what issue it is we're talking about. I know with blob it's a little bit, that one branched out a little bit in that we thought it was just going to be the controller, but then there actually is extra performance implications with the specific file being rendered.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a second to check the issue. Is it 217580? Yeah.
Yep.
So by fixing this blob controller, this will affect only those MD files that we have markdown. So I guess it will not go under the S3 because we will still have slow JSON files or those that doesn't have rich format. And it's questionable that this fix will improve performance of rendering those markups, but they will still load for 10 or 15 seconds. So if they're big.
You know what's funny? Like for the import rapid action, that was the main thing we identified as being the major CPU time sink for imports as well. so maybe as a nice side effect, we will also, if we fix that as a nice side effect, we might see better import performance as well. That would be interesting to look at if we land that.
All
right. It's actually two issues around this area now, like I've just described. There is the issue linked to the doc is for the source end, the source kind of path of here's a file, here's the blob file of a file in the source kind of way. So it just shows you the raw file, but with some extra parsing. It shows you it in the theme in the window that you have set up for your own personal kind of settings, but it is ultimately just the raw file. There's the rendered view, which is for Markdown. So when you click on the Markdown file, you'll have the actual rendered view, and a few other files have the same. So we actually split those issues out and the testing it because while they are shared, they are obviously still extra bits with the rendered view. So there's another issue for the rendered view, which is currently, last I checked, was much higher, or kind of a large markdown file, which going by the issue is about 20 seconds, but I wonder today, where is it? It is at 16 seconds, 16 and a half seconds. So the improvement here should improve that issue, but not the issue that's linked to the doc.
Grant, can you send me the link to that new issue and new file? I know you already sent on the channel, but...
Yeah, I'm going to write the doc now.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I have an issue opened kind of, well, I won't get into it because I guess this team's only helping out a bit. I suspect further issues down the line will be tackled by our teams, but it's a bit of a Pandora's box, in that GitLab does support other files in the render view other than just Markdown. I think once I saw like a 3D file getting rendered in actual 3D in the browser, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. It's a cool feature of mine, but pretty crazy. So I've raised an issue to eventually for us to explore other files that can fall into that kind of bracket. But again, I don't expect that to be part of this team's work unless this team's asked again to help in the same area. So, but yeah, that MR should improve the issue I've linked to the doc now. Like I say, today is 16 seconds, so any improvement there is would be really good. The source files run about 3 seconds, still not great. Should be improved, but that's it's not 16. So that's the one that should be focused on for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to see how much this MR will affect the performance of the blob controller and everything else, because the good thing is it should affect also the file preview, issue preview, and even notes, everything that has rendering. So
yeah, affects a lot.
I hope we don't break anything. Yeah, it's under feature flag, so I guess we are, if we roll it out smart, it should be okay.
I like to think most of our testing pipelines were able to catch any rendering file issues. So, but if not, we will test it manually, make sure everything's fine. But yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Regarding metric transaction, Camille already brought down the comments. So I don't know. We'll probably iterate it one more time and see if it's going to be merged or we're going to refactor it again.
I mean, like, to be fair, like I read your like explanation about, and it's like it's okay. I would not really like spend more time on it.
Okay. Awesome.
So like, I just want to go like for another review. Just try it manually a few times, and if it's fine, I'm just gonna merge that. So.
Awesome. Yeah, so I started this investigating those endpoints where we have those like a big amount of cached SQL calls, and I identified several endpoints for requests, several endpoints for like sidekick servers, and I started investigating like creating nodes. So I promoted this issue to the epic, the first one, and started working on the first sub-issue that is related to creating nodes. And this again touches those banzai filters that we use in blob controller. So I will push an MR because I already fixed some of them. And we will see how it goes. But like, I identified a lot of places inside the banzai filter of like cached queries. As you can see in the table, we have a case where somebody posted a note and we had 23,000 cached queries. I reduced this number to 25 cached queries in my test example from 10,000. So I hope it will be good.
So like Nicola, did you have some tests like to see like the impact on the like timing or memory?
I still didn't like profile it for the memory, but I will. I was just.
I'm kind of like curious to understand if it's like the a big amount of the cached queries is like anti-pattern or is it not anti-pattern? So I'm just kind of like looking for that answer. It's like if we have this 23,000, it's like it's really bad that we have this 23,000, or it's like it's okay-ish. So because like this number is ridiculous. Like
yeah.
I added labels and milestone to it. It sounded like you were working on it now, so I put it in the current milestone. But
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And yeah, thanks for promoting that epic and creating the sub issues.
Yeah, I will create another one, but I started with this one, and while investigating, I started fixing. So.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, Camille, you're up.
So I closed the rack timeout and I'm continuing feature fax usage. There was some unassigned issues from this epic, so I moved them to the backlog and like to consideration in the next milestone. But for now, this is what I'm like aiming for this milestone, for these feature flags.
Okay. Lexi?
As for image resizing, it's still in research phase, I would say. So we have a next think meeting on Wednesday, and my idea is to build the data on throughput for our size of image on example of image proxy on a single CPU, maybe on a multi-CPU, because image proxy already has some benchmarks comparing it to other tools. So it would be nice, like sort of, I don't know, like sort of comparing point from where we could decide on tooling if we go with dynamic. So yeah, I didn't check static though. So I didn't check how much it would take for us to resize 80 gigabytes of images statically. It would also require research on the tool as well. Yeah, and we paired with Igor and pulled the data on CDN caching stats. It's yeah, smaller than it could be, as Camille mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Josh, did you have any questions on what we're working on with this and the approach so far?
Yeah, I'd be curious. I think that the proof of concept is great, and thank you for helping to get the data. I was just curious on what the team thought about the dynamic resizing and the addition of image proxy. Are we on board? Are we concerned about the effort and scope? Or concerned and maybe, are worried that it might be like too much of a lift?
Until I've heard about like child processes from Camille, I was pretty concerned about whole infrastructure for effort, because I thought, like as Josh also mentioned, that introducing Plasma services like a change to whole layers of GitLab. So a lot of services would affect a change, but if you could somehow discreetly like inject it into workhorse, maybe it would not that like complex in terms of infrastructure. As for approach itself, I pretty much think from what we discussed so far and from what team wrote, I'm pretty much think that dynamic is what stakeholders, would like us to do sooner or later. So I have a feeling like that's what we want in the long run as sort of universal solution.
I think
Yeah,
it seems to me like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I just meant to say, also from past experience, it seems like the typical trajectory is that it's usually initially easier to do the pre-generated images where you just generate them as soon as a user uploads an asset. But then if as soon as volume adds up, it gets more and more expensive, and the more sizes you add to maintain this like pool of images. What I don't really know yet is, we have some data now, which is nice. Is it wasn't even clear to me in the beginning what was the image volume. I think we know now it's about 80 gigabytes, which is not that much, right?
It's avatars only.
That's only avatars. Okay, got it.
Yes,
yeah,
which
because
already smaller and each limited to 200 kilobytes on upload. So we have a lot of content images.
Yeah, but it feels like if you want to have a solution, that will survive the next couple of years, also considering like where we're going, it sounds like it would make more sense to do the dynamic approach. But yeah,
and as mentioned by Tim, it's also quite tricky to statically resize content images. We have a lot of content images like previews for, and they are much bigger than avatars. So it wouldn't be much of a gain, but we would still need to store a lot of data because they would have like bigger size. So I feel like we are more or less moving towards dynamic in this epic over static.
So to give some idea, we have How big is the 1 second? Let me see. I'm trying to figure out how big this is. I'll just put it in the doc here. So this is the uploads storage type, or the project storage type in uploads, which I think might include more than just image uploads, but it's probably a good basis. It's that big, which is 5 terabytes, I think.
So
But
what does this contain exactly? Is it just image data?
yeah, it's not only image data, right? It could be. I have an initial breakdown in this. Craig, if you open an issue, this on CDN hit rate, for example. Yeah, and like scroll a bit. We had a table. I asked one of above, a bit above, and also above. Scroll up. Yeah. So this is per uploader, but we didn't distinguish. It's already like beefy query. It took 10 minutes, but we can't distinguish either file uploader, how many images across this file uploader stuff.
So it's just project avatars and issue MR and notes attachments.
But notes attachments could be files, right? Archives, like
could be.
Yeah, it could be a zip file or something even. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you should
right?
if we should write more beefier query to distinguish this, like how many images across this file uploader. And I decided to go with a simple query because it already took too much.
Yeah. I mean, so my concern with the dynamic resizing is kind of feels like the front end team just wants the easiest solution for them, which is great if we can provide it. But we also have 8 different front end avatar sizes, and and there's also a desire for other random resizing, right? And I'm worried that that our cache hit rate will be really low, or we'll have to make the cache very large to try and handle these things. And that's manageable. We can just put some rules in place. But right now it seems quite high. And then from there, I wonder about how frequently these images are actually utilized other than avatars. It seems like avatars are by far and away the most commonly requested. And then, how often do you hit a custom uploaded image? I think the common ones might be in like README files and things like that on project home pages. Like I think those probably pretty high value, pretty frequently hit, but like a random issue upload, is it that big of a deal if you pull in the whole thing and resize it in your browser? How often are you pulling it down? Is it worth the compute cost and extra storage to generate?
Yeah, I think these are really good points, and I think there might also be a middle ground where so I think there could be a solution that is kind of a mixture of this, where it's not generated on the fly perhaps, but you can do this approach where it's done lazily, so it's always like lagging. Let's say you want to pull down an avatar that is supposed to be small, so it needs to be fast. But on the first hit, we would find, oh, we don't have that size yet. So we still serve the original as we do now, but we know, oh, there was a request for it. So we asynchronously let a Sidekick worker generate a smaller version of it, or maybe even all of them that we know might get requested. But it would be lazy, so that the next time the same request comes in for that smaller image, we do have it. Right, so that is kind of a middle ground because you don't do it on the fly, because you don't need to wait for that image to be generated in band, like as part of the request response cycle. But you also don't need to run these massive batch jobs where you need to translate like terabytes potential image data which might take a week or so. Like, I don't know, could just be another option.
Yeah, or we could set like a pretty aggressive timeout on dynamic resizing. If we would have this service like image proxy, we would set super aggressive timeout, and if it wouldn't respond, we would serve the original image and then like let it finish the job and cache the result. And next time we serve from the cache, for example, because I'm pretty sure it would be ready for Avatar. It would be ready to answer any request for like how much? Couple of milliseconds maybe.
So I guess that raises an interesting question. Are we going to proxy these downloads, or are we going to have them go direct to object storage when we generate the page?
I thought that we would proxy them initially, because we should there on like proxy level we could decide if we are serving dynamically resized or if the image cache not ready, image too huge, we could just serve the original one. That was my idea.
I think it's a really good question, because I think a lot of these questions kind of hinge on this whole, what should we do? Or is the thing we want to do for .com, is that necessary to do for self-managed, and kind of vice versa? Or should it work for both cases? Because I would say for .com, I would just say let the CDN handle the caching. And then if it's not in the CDN cache, we go to object storage. But if for self-managed, that maybe that's not enough, because if they don't use the CDN, that would be slow.
Generally, I think from what we've seen, it usually is a proxy. Browsers start to get funny when you're trying to load assets directly from different URLs than the one that you're on. They generally will block it, and other kind of weird behavior like that. I think I've seen maybe a different object storage provider. Maybe once I saw it going direct, and that actually was confusing because there wasn't any direct config to do with that. But generally, it's a proxy.
One data point here is that we ended up paying about, was it $3 million a year proxying artifact uploads for .com?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Thank you, Camille.
I mean, the proxy could simply just be the load balancer literally just takes the request and fires it to the CDN. But you do need to still do that kind of stuff for the browsers to be happy, to make them think, oh, it's all coming from the same place initially.
So just like it's even more complex, because like what is cheaper is like proxying to the Cloudflare to cache, or is it like sending URL to the object storage for the client to access the file directly? I honestly don't know about the pricing. It's like you probably would have to run an experiment and check the impact on the egress cost.
Yeah, so we pay at a minimum 20 cents a gig. Well, we pay at a minimum for any 10 cents of egress from our services on GCP, and then we also pay then 10 cents a gig for any interzone traffic, one of which will be pulling from GCS. So we'll end up getting double billed there for transfer.
So probably what you want to do is really is to transfer the least amount of the data from the Google Cloud in any form to the Cloudflare, basically, or like to the client. Yeah. Because if you do like caching, let's say internally and proxy internally to the object storage, this traffic is free. You're only paying for the requests, really, but the traffic is free. So the like resizing on the Cloudflare has the impact that you still pay for the egress traffic from GitLab. So which is like the egress traffic is pretty pricey, like from the Google Cloud to the Cloudflare.
Yeah. Although that's only happened for the first until it gets cached, obviously, right? Once it's cached, then you're good. But yeah.
So yeah, so
I'm not sure which is more expensive.
Yeah, so basically we also look at with Alexei and Nicola and Chinyu on the expected hit ratio. And from the 7-day period, we are looking that GitLab could have the hit ratio of on the dynamic resizing of something like 85 to 90% on the images, like not changing any sizes. So like we were looking at 90% of the hit ratio on the current sizes. So like supporting all sizes that are currently used by the application.
Is that avatars only, or is that all types?
I think all files that were like requested as an images from GitLab,
If you open an issue, you will see. I think Camille like noted for both all avatars and just images. I think we have like, if you it's on the top of the description. This data on the very top. Yeah, this known data. You see like 20.
Okay. So basically, like with the width, there are basically only like avatars.
Avatars, yeah.
Avatars having the width. So this were the numbers that we are looking like at 200. We had 10.8, but there was like 1.45 unique during that period. So we were looking that we would be resizing on about 1.45 million of the images from the 7-day period. And it kind of like flattens over time, because like for the 60 minutes, we had around like 50%, less than 50. For the 24 hours, we had about 25% or 20. And it was like the longer period, like we were kind of like getting probably to something like 10% or something like that on the hit ratio. And I'm talking about the GitLab because Alexi then checked the CDN, and CDN additionally gives us about 50% hit ratio.
Yeah, so gotcha. So it'll be a factor higher actually to the client, but
so probably like you could look that we would be saving like 8 or let's say maybe 9 million multiplied by 48 kilobytes, because this is the average size. Probably the avatar will be of 1 kilobyte size, I would expect something. So we would be saving about 47 kilobytes multiplied by 9 million of the files. So this would be the traffic savings, I guess.
Although, if it's not modified, we wouldn't pay for it, right? Like if we respond with an HTTP 304 or whatever it is, it'd only be the one. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's you're counting the unique versus you're counting unique versus non-unique. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Because it doesn't work like that, because each request needs to be authenticated and authorized. So basically, this is why you have so poor hit ratio on the CDN for the avatars. Probably, and this is interesting aspect, maybe there is some optimization somewhere to put, if there are avatars publicly available, we could maybe more aggressive with the caching, because like majority of the avatars, they are publicly available, so we don't need to authorize them. And like we could really request them unauthorized. I just don't know exactly how to model that, but this could be like optimization to skyrocket this CDN ratio to probably on the Cloudflare to like 90% or even higher.
Yeah.
And when you say they need to be authorized, what do you mean exactly? Because I mean, I can go to GitLab.com without an account and I can look at people's avatars, right?
Yes,
are you
but
saying
like,
they
but
need
like
a cookie or something?
yes, but this request is still authorized, but you are treated as anonymous user.
Okay. Right.
That's the difference.
So you're saying they're basically siloed by session user,
Yes.
whether anonymous or otherwise.
Yes. So probably from what I understand how it works, like the Cloudflare creates like a unique. I mean, this is why we have so poor hit rates on the Cloudflare, because it ties you with the session cookie or something like that. So basically, you may receive the file from the Cloudflare if the same session cookie is being used, but like it's not being shared across all users at GitLab at the same instance, because each request needs to be authorized.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's why like we have we don't see so many 304 because you would expect to see significantly more. I mean, sorry, 304 is actually generated only by the browser. It's never generated by the Cloudflare. Cloudflare may like request or not request file, but it's gonna always send you maybe, I'm not sure if it even sends you if non-modified match. So I don't know, it seems that there's still like some areas that we could optimize our Cloudflare worker script. I just don't know how, but there are like aspects about like authorization of the images, and maybe there is some way to send if non-match or something like that. But I don't know, there is something that we could, I think, optimize on the CDN side to make it more efficient somehow.
All right, so I think on there we should probably open a separate issue on the CDN optimization, and maybe check and see if it's documented, because I'm not really sure how this works. And it sounds like Camille is documented.
There is actually like a script how to configure CDN, and there is like a script only for the Cloudflare. So we only support a script for the Cloudflare how to use it.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if that's even worth having a separate epic, because correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was like anything related to the CDN that will never apply to self-managed, right? So we can't really rely on anything the CDN does for the final solution we want to build, unless we're not prioritizing self-managed, right?
That's right.
It's even worse because you need a Cloudflare business account for these functions that we use. So
I think some people stick CloudFront in front. The Amazon solution is relatively easy CDN, but I don't know.
I know that our my familiar teams use some local Russian CDN solutions. So everyone uses their own like kind of solutions, so could rely on Cloudflare, of course.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what kind of authorization is set up. I had a really hard time. I actually looked for this. I had a really hard time finding any instructions whatsoever on setting up a CDN for GitLab. Yeah. But I think regardless, we pay for Cloudflare, and let's try and get usage out of it. So if we can optimize our experience for .com, we're paying for a service. We implement it for a reason. Let's try and get the highest ROI we can out of it. But it's a good point that I think we don't want to depend upon a CDN for the overall, I think, epic here or issue here, which is the imagery sizing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't mean to say we shouldn't look at it, but I personally always have a hard time like separating these two things in my mind, because then we ventured down like a certain avenue and then, oh, wait, like, this will be tricky or maybe not possible to do for self-managed. So I just find it easier to like think about these things in like separate, what do you call that?
Yeah, it's a separate track, like improve hit rate on CDN, like for GitLab.com. And it's pretty much, it would help us, but we still up with dynamic resizing improvement here.
Okay, I can at least stub out issues and epics for that. Let's move on. Got a few minutes before this meeting is scheduled to end. So we have a few unassigned issues for 13.2. And sorry, going back to the image resizing epic issue. So there's a follow-up meeting on Wednesday to discuss further what are the next steps. So for unassigned issues for 13.2, just going down from the top, Nicola, this looks like something you're working on. Is this going to make it for 13.2, or should we kick it out?
Yeah,
like the issue you just created.
I think this can stay because I already prepared MR. I just need to push it, and if something like review gets stuck, we can just move it to 13.3.
Okay.
But for now, it's good. It's small change, but it can be pushed very fast.
Okay. Lexi?
Yeah, we discussed with the help of Camille, we identified popular sizes, and that was like a more broad issue. Either we are going to like consolidate the design choices here to improve the cache hit rate. But I think we'll discuss it on Wednesday.
Okay.
So.
All right, Matthias?
Oh, can you open this? Because one of these generic follow-ups, I don't even know what it is. Yeah, it must be a merge request thing. We should ensure that topology model doesn't leak. Oh, we did this. We might have just forgotten to close it. This is done. It was just a merge request follow-up.
Oh, looks like it's closed anyway.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's done. And then the next one that probably needs to move because that's part of multi-node. Initially, all the multi-node stuff was in 13.2. Yeah, you can just move that because we're not working on this right now. Yeah, and then that last one. Oh, this one. Yeah, it's like kind of, it was one of these like colorful basket issues of multiple things. So I fixed, can you scroll down a little bit actually? Right. I fixed actually 2 out of these 4 things. I'm actually almost inclined to close this, and then it kind of ended up a bit of a grab bag of things that we found were or might become issues. Most of them related to multi-node, but some of them actually turned out to be problems earlier. So like that last point there, I already addressed. I think I left a comment about that. And I think the first point I also addressed. The first bullet point there, use recording rules. Yeah, we did that. So just assign it to me. I'll look at it, see if that's still worth doing what's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can also move it to the next milestone. It's not like the important stuff and that issue got done for this milestone. So we don't need this to look like it's slipped. Yeah, thanks.
And then we got this one too. Is that the same one we already talked about? Yeah, I think we just forgot to assign it because we, I think we ended up fixing this eventually as part of the same MR even. There was just a discussion around it. And yeah, it never got assigned, but it's done. All right. So last thing I had was take a look at the planning issue, talk about it this week since the next milestone starts next week. All right, and we have 5 minutes left. Are there any other topics we need to cover today? All right, take silence as a no. Happy Monday. Thanks, everybody.
Monday. See you guys.
Happy Monday.
See you soon.
See ya.